I'm currently in the middle of a family crisis, and it's tearing everything apart. I'm 35, male, married to my wife Emma, who is 32, female, for just over a year. We're expecting our first child in a few months. What should be a joyful time has been clouded by drama surrounding my sister, Sarah, who is 43, female. I need to give you the whole story to help you understand how things unraveled. I met my wife Emma 5 years ago at a charity gala. She was there representing her family's foundation, and I was attending as part of my company's outreach program. Emma was radiant, not just beautiful, but also warm and approachable. Despite coming from a wealthy family, she was down to earth in a way that immediately put me at ease. We hit it off that night, and from there, our relationship blossomed. Emma is incredibly compassionate and hardworking. She's an interior designer who has built a successful career entirely on her own, despite her family's wealth. She's also the kind of person who genuinely cares about others, often going out of her way to help friends, family, and even strangers. After dating for a few years, I proposed and we had a beautiful wedding. Now, with a baby on the way, I feel like we're building the life I've always dreamed of. But this issue with Sarah has been a massive weight on our happiness. Sarah married her husband Tom, 45, male, a little over 2 years ago. They were both in their 40s and knew they needed to act quickly if they wanted to start a family. Unfortunately, after a year of trying, they were diagnosed with unexplained infertility. They were devastated, and I felt for them. I know how much Sarah wanted to be a mother. About a year ago, Sarah and Tom approached Emma and me for financial help to pay for IVF. While they both work, their financial situation is tight. They live paycheck to paycheck and couldn't afford the treatments on their own. Emma and I discussed it and decided to help. We're not billionaires, but we're comfortable, so we agreed to cover the cost of 1 round of IVF. Felt like the right thing to do. Sarah was optimistic and hopeful going into the first round of IVF, but the process was grueling. It's physically, emotionally, and mentally draining, and I could see the toll it was taking on her. When the cycle failed, she was devastated. I tried to be there for her, offering support and comfort, but there was little I could say to ease the pain. Within weeks of the failed round, Sarah came to us again, asking if we would pay for a second round. She was desperate, saying she felt like time was running out. Emma and I talked it over and decided to help her out one more time. We knew how much this meant to her, and we genuinely wanted to see her dream come true. We paid for the second round, hoping this time it would work. The second round was even harder on Sarah. She confided in me about the side effects of the medications and the emotional strain of balancing hope with the fear of another failure. Emma and I were supportive throughout the process, but when the second round failed as well, Sarah was inconsolable. It was heartbreaking to watch her go through this, but it was also becoming clear that IVF might not be the solution for her. Emma and I were already stretching ourselves financially, and with a baby on the way, we knew we needed to start focusing on our own family. A few months ago, Sarah approached us again, asking for help to fund a third round of IVF. This time, we had to say no. Emma and I discussed it extensively and came to the conclusion that we'd already done as much as we could. Between the financial strain and the very low chances of success, given Sarah's age, we felt it was no longer a reasonable or sustainable request. When I told Sarah, she didn't take it well. She accused us of being greedy and selfish, saying we were hoarding our wealth while she was fighting for her dream to become a mother. She called us disgusting and claimed Emma's family's wealth made our refusal even more appalling. It was shocking and hurtful, especially considering how much we'd already done for her. Emma was particularly hurt, as she'd gone out of her way to be supportive and generous. Sarah stormed out, leaving our relationship strained. I thought that would be the end of it, but I was wrong. About a week after Sarah's outburst, Emma noticed that several pieces of her jewelry were missing. These weren't just any pieces. They included heirlooms from her late grandmother, a necklace and bracelet set I'd given her on our wedding day, and a few other very valuable items. Emma was devastated. The sentimental value of those pieces far outweighed their monetary worth. We searched the house top to bottom, but the jewelry was nowhere to be found. That's when it hit me. Sarah had been at our house a few days earlier. We had hosted her for coffee, trying to smooth things over after the argument. She'd asked to use the bathroom and had been alone upstairs for a few minutes. It was the only explanation that made sense. I didn't want to jump to conclusions, but the timeline added up. I called Sarah to confront her. At first, she denied everything, but after I pressed her, she broke down and admitted she'd taken the jewelry. She said she had sold it to fund another round of IVF. Sarah begged me not to go to the police, insisting she only did it because she was desperate. Emma was devastated. Those pieces of jewelry weren't just expensive. They were irreplaceable. The fact that Sarah would steal them from us, especially from Emma, who had been so generous, felt like the ultimate betrayal. After discussing it, Emma and I decided to press charges. We filed a police report, and Sarah was arrested because the value of the item stolen was quite significant. It was an incredibly difficult decision, but we felt it was necessary. Stealing from us, especially in such a premeditated way, was unacceptable, and we couldn't just sweep it under the rug. Since pressing charges, my family has turned against me. My parents are furious, accusing me of ruining Sarah's life and destroying her only chance of having a family. They believe I should have forgiven her and handled it privately. Some relatives have even suggested that we give Sarah the money for another round of IVF as a way to make things right. They've also dismissed Emma's pain, arguing that she comes from a wealthy family and can easily replace the jewelry. This attitude has only made things worse, as it completely ignores the sentimental value of the stolen items. Emma has been incredibly strong throughout this ordeal, but I can see how much it hurts her. She's always been kind and generous to my family, and this betrayal has shaken her trust in them. Sarah is facing legal consequences, and my relationship with my family is in shambles. My parents have essentially disowned me unless I drop the charges, and Sarah refuses to speak to me. I've tried explaining my perspective, but they won't listen. They're convinced I'm the villain for not forgiving Sarah and helping her pursue her dream of becoming a mother. I feel like I'm stuck between a rock and a hard place. On one hand, I feel justified in my actions. Sarah crossed the line, and her actions have consequences. On the other hand, I can't help but wonder if I've handled this poorly. Should I have forgiven her and kept this within the family? Am I heartless for refusing to fund another round of IVF and pressing charges? I need your honest opinions. Have I ruined my sister's life? Or am I just holding her accountable for her choices? Op and his wife were incredibly generous to fund 2 rounds of IVF for Op's sister. That's more than most people would ever do. Sarah's behavior is completely unacceptable. Stealing from Op, especially sentimental items like Op's wife's jewelry, crosses a line that can't be ignored. Yes, infertility is devastating, but it's not an excuse to steal. Op's family blaming Op for ruining her life is absurd. She ruined her own life by choosing to steal and sell things that weren't hers. Op is not the villain here, and he has every right to stand his ground. Now, let's hear the community's opinion. Everyone sucks here. Sarah's actions were obviously wrong, and stealing is never justified. However, I feel like this situation spiraled because of poor communication and boundaries. It's clear Sarah is desperate, but your refusal, while justified, may have felt like the final nail in the coffin for her dream. That doesn't excuse her theft, but pressing charges might feel excessive to some. Maybe a middle ground like having her return the value of the items could have helped maintain some semblance of a relationship. Not the a-hole. Your sister's pain is real, and infertility is a devastating struggle, but that doesn't give her the right to steal from you and your wife, especially after you went out of your way to support her twice. You didn't ruin her life. She made a series of bad choices that led to these consequences. It's unfair for your family to guilt-trip you when you've already done more than enough to help her. Focus on your wife and upcoming baby. You're doing the right thing by protecting them. Your sister sounds entitled and manipulative. She guilt-tripped you into funding 2 failed IVF rounds, called you greedy and disgusting when you said no to a third, and then had the audacity to steal your wife's jewelry. That's a level of disrespect that can't be overlooked. Your family enabling her behavior is only making it worse. Stand your ground. If they truly cared about family, they'd hold Sarah accountable for her actions instead of blaming you. You've done more than enough. I'm 16 years old, and my dad married my stepmom just about a year ago. She didn't want me to live here and wants me gone. I've insisted that I should stay, as I don't want to live with my mom. Her husband is a piece of work, so we're always clashing. She announced last month that she wouldn't allow me to eat anything she cooks or cook anything that she buys, and I should arrange my own food completely separately, down to the ingredient level including salt, because I'm not her problem to deal with. This is annoying, but anyway, I can handle it. I didn't want to act entitled, so I started buying and cooking my own food. We've been going like this since then. A few days ago, her sister had an accident. On the day of the accident, my stepmother texted me in the afternoon saying she was bringing her sister's children over, and they'd arrive around midnight. She asked me to buy groceries and snacks and make a late dinner for them. I never replied to her and didn't do anything. I have to say that while for a few hours it didn't look good for her sister and she had to go into surgery, it ended up being successful, and she will thankfully make a full recovery. They came, and she noticed there was no food, and they indeed were hungry. So, she was angry at me, and I told her it's not my problem to deal with. She said I'm being a jerk, and I said, "Takes one to know one." She ended up ordering pizza. My dad told me I was out of line and should have just done what she wanted me to do because it was an emergency and it would have gone a long way to improve our relationship. I told him that our relationship has always been hopeless, because she hated me for no reason. So, there's nothing I can do that can make her hate me any less. At this point, I've accepted it and don't care anymore. He said it's not true, and I'm now grounded. Not the a-hole. Is your dad allowing this to happen? You are 16 and living at home. You shouldn't be paying for your own food. I told him to make my dad fix this problem. My dad pays me for the food I buy, although my stepmother believes I should pay for it myself because I have an income. Not the a-hole. She set a precedent in the home, and when it came back to bite her, she got angry. It's unfortunate that my dad allows her to say I can't eat food she buys when I'm still a minor in his home. It's even more of a shame that after allowing that behavior from her, he expected me to do for her sister's kids what she won't do for me. It's all also not my responsibility as the minor in the household to improve my relationship with my stepmom, who clearly resents me. It's extremely unfortunate that I don't seem to get along with the spouse of either of my parents. I think I need to sit down and ask my dad why he has higher standards for me, a teenager, than he does for his wife, a full-grown adult. I'm a stepmom, and I most certainly think it's my problem if my stepchild is hungry. I also don't understand why he'd marry someone who is combative and not loving towards me. You are part of him, and she supposedly loves him, so what gives? I'm not sure what I'd do in your shoes, since either parent's home sounds horrible to be in at the moment. Shame on your dad for failing to stand up for you, though, when you needed it. It was the perfect opportunity for him to tell her that she shouldn't expect you to do for other kids what she won't do for you. The kids got fed. She ordered them a pizza. There was no reason to punish you for not obeying someone who can't treat you properly. She's got some twisted priorities to think feeding her sister's kids is her problem, but feeding her stepson is not. I'm utterly appalled at your dad for allowing her to order you to buy your own food. That's reasonable if you were an adult living in their home, but not as a minor. I do think I might use her food anyway and ignore her inane position, or sit her down and iron out expectations. I think you need to tell her point blank that she set the example for you to follow, so if she's angry with how you handled yourself, she has herself to thank. Thank for your point of view. Recently, I was helping my parents with a bit of late spring cleaning and throwing a lot of old rubbish out when I came across what I assume is the most recent copy of their will, dated June 2012. I didn't mean to look at it, but as I moved it, I noticed in the beneficiary section on the front that only my sister was listed. Then, I know it was horrible of me to do, but I decided to have a read through it. I'm not in it at all. My sister is listed as the sole beneficiary. She will get their house, life insurance policies, savings, car, absolutely everything. They aren't rich people by any means, but due to the way property prices have risen since they bought their house in the 80s, this probably comes in total to about £500,000. They have always had a thing with favoring my sister a bit more than me, giving her extra attention and stuff, but I've never really minded. She is a bit of a screw-up, and if I'm honest, she has needed the extra attention. I'm not going to lie either. My financial situation is a lot better than my parents'. I'm engaged, and together, me and my partner, no kids, make about £45,000 a year. She is a single parent of 2 children, with a deadbeat dad, no child support, and earning about £16,600 a year. I know that is a lot of gap, and I would understand if they left her a greater share to help her out more, but leaving me with nothing just seems so harsh. Whilst me and my fiancé do earn more, we aren't exactly rolling in money, and even if they had left me 20%, it would still be more than enough to help me start to buy a house. Obviously, this is all hypothetical as they are both perfectly healthy and have a long time yet, but it just seems harsh that if they were to die tomorrow, my sister would be set while I would be left with nothing. Am I right to be angry about this? Should I confront them about it or not? I know it's not my money at all, but she is a terrible daughter to them over the years. She has lied to them, stole money from them, and me had to be bailed out and fines paid for, debts, etc. She barely even finished school as well. So, whilst she is financially worse off, it's only because she has made herself so. On the other hand, I visit them all the time, help them out whenever they asked, went to university, which they had always wanted me to do, and I paid for it 100% myself with no help. It just seems like they are punishing me and rewarding her for being such a failure. Additional info. With me, they have always had a parenting style of letting me make my own way. If I wanted something, I was expected to do chores, get a job, and pay for it. I don't mind at all. It's made me more responsible. My sister, on the other hand, they always bought what she wanted and never really expected as much from her as me. That's ducked up. You have every right to be angry. Parents should never play favorites with their children. It's their money, and they can do whatever they want with it. I can understand feeling left out, but it really depends on how you look at it. It seems for your entire life, your parents felt that you could handle whatever life threw at you, and they had faith that you would be okay. Your sister, on the other hand, seems to have made her life a mess, and your parents seem to realize that she can't survive on her own without some kind of assistance. Think about it like that and you'll realize that it's pretty sad. Be happy that you have the means to always support yourself. Update. I wanted to get this sorted out as soon as possible, so I took the afternoon off and went round to see them. I learned 2 new things about myself from my parents. 1, I was an accident. Apparently, after my sister, my mom had a miscarriage and they decided not to try again. Then, a year later, along pops me because I was unplanned. They hadn't really thought through their finances, and so for about a year and a half my dad had to work 2 jobs. He has always felt that I made him miss out on my sister growing up, and that because he rarely saw me, he was never really connected with me. As for my mom, the previous miscarriage had put her off having children. She was content with her little girl, and by then, age 39, was quite happy to be done having children. 2, they are disappointed with me. They don't like my fiancé. They don't like that I live a 40-minute drive away. They are sad that I chose accountancy instead of doing a law degree, but most of all, they are disappointed that I am not closer to my sister. That is friends with a girl who spent most of her life picking on me, who has treated them appallingly, who stole money from them regularly until she moved out, and who I was persuaded to lend £2,000 of my savings for university to, so she could clear some debts. She never paid that back, and I had to get into a lot of debt myself to get through my final year. It's not even like I am horrible to my sister now. I love my niece and nephew and spoil them all the time. And for their sake, I will help her out from time to time with money for bills and food. Apparently, this is why I am not in the will and never have been, except when I was younger, where custody of me would have been given to my aunt until I was 18. They have never really seen me as their son. I was always a bit too distant and self-reliant, and apparently, I made it easy for them to love your sister more. I'm not going to get anything, as they don't really view me as a part of the family. Me going away for 3 years to university made it worse, but it's something that they have always felt. They asked me if I felt that it was wrong what I did and said if I could persuade them otherwise, they would change it somewhat. My sister would still be the main beneficiary, but I would get something from them. I know you guys will probably be disappointed with me for my response, but I just left. I told them I didn't care about the money at all, and if they could not see me as a son, then I no longer see them as parents. I'm 33, female, and my boyfriend is 42, male. We have been dating for almost 2 years. He has an 8-year-old daughter who has known I'm his girlfriend for over 9 months now. She likes me and I hang out with him and his daughter often. including sleeping over when she is at his house. My boyfriend and his ex have been split up for 5 years now. He ended it, but they have a great parenting relationship, to the point where they still go on family vacations together and spend holidays together for the sake of their daughter. For Easter this year, they decided to do a brunch at the ex-wife's house. My boyfriend's parents, sister, and significant other were invited. My boyfriend invited me, and then a day before, he took back the invitation, stating that his ex-wife was uncomfortable with me being there. I was crushed and completely upset, but it was her house. Fast forward to now, his daughter's birthday is being held at the country club in his neighborhood. Again, right before he tells me his ex isn't comfortable with me being there, even though his parents, his sister plus one, and even his cousins will be there. I'm furious but also torn. It's not a holiday and is specific to his daughter, but I'm hurt. I'm banned from going, by the way. He lives an hour and a half from me, so I basically have to find something else to do while the party is happening. So, my questions are, if his family sees me at his house beforehand and asks me why I'm not going, do I tell them the truth? Why should I have to cover for her? If he does this again, should I consider breaking up with him? This is a boyfriend problem, not an ex-wife problem. If your boyfriend can't make room for you in all parts of his life, he's not ready to date. I understand the Easter thing. You had only been dating a few months, but if he intends this to be long-term, he's going to have to start making some decisions. Here's the thing, the Easter thing at her own house is up to her. If she wants you there, it doesn't matter if you get married to this guy. She can say who is allowed at her house. However, he shouldn't be deferring to her at the party at his house. He is showing you that her feelings matter more to him than yours, and that's an issue. If she does truly have an issue with you and it never resolves, expect any event at her house you won't be invited to. And that's understandable for her comfort, but not when the event is elsewhere. After 2 years of dating, you might need to reevaluate this relationship. My parents divorced when I was 12. Since then, my mother forbade me to have any contact with my father. Even mentioning his name, she would refer to him rarely as the deceased. Pressured by her, I had never pursued to hear any news from him. Then we jumped to 2014. I was about to get married and move away from my mother's. I had a big job offer overseas, so it was a big move, and the anticipation was huge. I had undergone therapy because of an unrelated issue, my inability to say no, trying to please everybody, and had taken antidepressants and had stopped. The only thing left for my therapy was the task the psychologist gave me. Find out something about my father, even though I was afraid. We managed to get in touch with him before moving out of the country, and it was fantastic. That was a huge moment when we saw each other for the first time in over 10 years. To this day, my mother doesn't know I have talked to him often. The tension started a few months after the move. My mother found out my wife had added my father's name and my stepmother on Facebook. We told her we didn't know who she was and deleted her. My wife got really upset for doing that and has not talked to my mother since, over 6 months ago. A couple of months ago, my sister broke up with her boyfriend of over 10 years. She found out he was cheating on her and started referring to him as her deceased, as a reference to the way my mother refers to my father. But he was my friend even before dating her, and I chose him to be the best man in my wedding. I can't break up with him like she did. This week, my sister and my wife have been dropping hints on Facebook, ting with mean language about how they disagree with each other. There are no direct accusations, but the mood is terrible. I seem to be in good terms with my mother and sister, but they won't talk to my wife, and my wife doesn't want to talk to them. She tells me to go talk to them, go fix it. I tried telling her to stop the social media war, but she says that I'm not on her side when I do so. She doesn't see that she's feeding this fight, and both of us are 5,000 miles away from our families. I want to put an end to this, but I don't know how. I want to let my mother know I've been in touch with my father, but I don't know how, and right now, I'm afraid it'll make these fights even worse. I never had a great relationship with my sister, and being so far away makes it harder. So, beautiful people, what would you advise me to do? You're an adult. Your mommy and sister do not get to decide who you have relationships with. Stop engaging with ridiculous Facebook drama. You say, "Sister, I know you don't want to have anything to do with him. He is still an important part of my life. I'll do my best to not force you two to be in the same room, but realize I'm not cutting him out of my life. I don't get why this is any business of your mother's whether you are in contact with your father. It's BS to make your wife delete someone as a friend on Facebook to avoid upsetting your mother. You don't seem to realize that it's okay for your mom to be upset, and it's okay for your sister to be upset. Life will go on if they want to make this the hill for your relationship to die on. It's on them. It isn't like you're insisting everyone sit around the fire in Kumbaya every night, holding hands together and crap.